Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is an audio-visual recording for the part of the lesson that has you looking at the seven ancient wonders of the world. Please be advised that the goal of this part of the lesson is to have you take something away from some, but not all, of these modern marvels in the ancient world that show us and tell us how science and technology built wonderful forms of architecture. Signs of culture, signs of greatness, and signs of empire. So before I begin, please let me encourage you to open up to today's lesson on the Google Doc and Google Classroom, and you can type in any key fun facts for any wonder of your choosing, as they'll be put into a brochure type guide for the ancient world. Here's a little bit of introduction before we get started. The amazing works of art and architecture known as the Seven Wonders of the Ancient World serve as a testament of ingenuity, imagination, and sheer hard work of which human beings are capable. They are also, however, reminders of the human capacity for disagreement, destruction, and possibly embellishment. As soon as ancient writers compiled the list of seven wonders, it became fodder for debate over which achievements deserved inclusion. The original list comes from a work of Philo of Byzantium, written in 225 BC, called on the Seven Wonders. Ultimately, human hands joined with natural forces to destroy all but one of the wonders. Furthermore, it is possible that at least one of the wonders may not have even existed at all. Still, all seven continue to inspire and to be celebrated as remarkable products of the creativity and skill of Earth's early civilizations. Number one is the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. The Great Pyramid, located at Giza, on the west bank of the Nile River north of Cairo in Egypt, is the only wonder of the ancient world that has survived to the present day. It is part of a group of three pyramids, Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure. They were built between 2700 BC and 2500 BC as royal tombs. The largest and most impressive is Khufu, known as the Great Pyramid, which covers 13 acres and is believed to contain more than 2 million stone blocks that weigh from 2 to 30 tons each. For more than 4,000 years, Khufu reigned as the tallest building in the world. In fact, it took modern man until the 19th century to build a taller structure. Amazingly, the nearly symmetrical Egyptian pyramids were built without the aid of modern tools or surveying equipment. So how did Egyptians build the pyramids? Scientists believe that the Egyptians used log rollers and sledges to move the stones into place. The sloped walls, which were intended to mimic the rays of Ra, the sun god, were originally built as steps and then filled with limestone. The interior of the pyramids included narrow corridors and hidden chambers in an unsuccessful attempt to foil grave robbers. Although modern archaeologists have found some great treasures among the ruins, they believe most of what the pyramids once contained was looted within 250 years of their completion. Up next is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, as depicted here. According to ancient Greek poets, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were built near the Euphrates River in modern-day Iraq by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II around 600 BC. The gardens were said to have been planted as high as 75 feet in the air in a huge square brick terrace that was laid out in steps like a theater. The king allegedly built the towering gardens to ease his lover, Amides' homesickness of the natural beauty of her home in Media, the northwestern part of modern-day Iran. Later writers described how people could walk underneath the beautiful gardens, which rested on tall stone columns. Modern scientists have deduced that for the gardens to survive, they would have to be irrigated using a system consisting of a pump, water wheel, and cisterns to carry water from the Euphrates many feet into the air. Though there are multiple accounts of the gardens in both Greek and Roman literature, none of them are first-hand, and no mention of the gardens have been found in Babylonian cuneiform inscriptions. As a result, most modern scholars believe that the existence of the gardens was part of an inspired and widely believed but still fictional tale. Next here is the statue of Zeus at Olympia, as depicted here. The famed statue of Zeus, the king of gods in Greek mythology, was crafted by the Athenian sculptor Phidias and completed and placed in the Temple of Zeus at Olympia, site of the ancient Olympics, around mid-5th century BC. This statue depicted the god of thunder seated bare-chested on a wooden throne. Holding up the throne's armrests were two carved sphinxes, mythical creatures with the head and chest of a woman and the body of a lion and wings of a bird. The statue of Zeus was richly decorated with gold and ivory. At 40 feet, it was so tall that its head nearly touched the top of the temple. According to legend, the sculptor Phidias asked Zeus for a sign of his approval after finishing the statue, and soon after the temple was struck by lightning. The Zeus statue graced the temple at Olympia for more than 8 centuries before Christian priests persuaded the Roman emperor to close the temple in the 4th century AD. At that time, the statue was moved to a temple in Constantinople, where it is believed to have been destroyed in a fire in the year 462. Next is the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, as depicted here. There were actually more than one temple of Artemis. A series of several altars and temples were destroyed and then restored in the same site of Ephesus, a Greek port city of the west coast of modern-day Turkey. The most fabulous of these structures were two marble temples built around 550 BC and 350 BC, respectively. Apart from Olympus, the sun never looked on anything so grand, and writer Antipater of Sidon wrote the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus. The original Temple of Artemis was designed by Cretan architect Sorosrion and his son Metagenes, and decorated by some of the most celebrated artists in the ancient world. The building burned on July 21st, 356 BC, according to legend, the same night that Alexander the Great was born. It was torched by a Greek citizen named Herostratus, who claimed to burn the marble so that his name would be known into history. He was put to death, and the government declared it illegal to even utter his name. After 6 years, the building of the new Temple of Artemis was begun, and the new building was surrounded by marble steps that led to more than 400-foot-long terrace. Inside stood 127 60-foot marble columns and a statue of Artemis, the Greek goddess of the hunt. Archaeologists disagree as to whether the building had an open-air ceiling or was topped with wood tiles, and the temple was largely destroyed by Ostrogos in AD 262, and it was not until the 1860s that archaeologists dug up the first of the ruins of the temple's columns at the bottom of the Cayster River. Next, here is the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, as depicted here. Located in what is now southeastern Turkey, the mausoleum at Halicarnassus was a tomb built by Artemisa and her husband Molossus, the king of Carnea in Asia Minor. After his death in 353 BC, Molossus, who was also Artemisa's brother, and according to legend, she was so grief-stricken at his passing that she mixed his ashes with water and drank them in addition to ordering the mausoleum's construction. The massive mausoleum was made entirely of white marble, and it was thought to have been about 135 feet high. The building's complicated design, consisting of 3 rectangular layers, may have been an attempt to reconcile Lycian, Greek, and Egyptian architectural styles. The first layer was 60-foot base of steps, followed by a middle layer of 36 iconic columns and stepped pyramid-shaped roof. At the very top of the roof lay a tomb decorated by a work of 4 sculptures and 20-foot marble rendition of a 4-horse chariot. The mausoleum was largely destroyed in an earthquake in the 13th century, and its remains were later used in the fortification of a castle. In 1846, pieces of one of the mausoleum's friezes were extracted from the castle and now reside along with the other relics from the Halicarnassus site in London's British Museum. Next, here's the Colossus of Rhodes, as depicted here. The Colossus of Rhodes was an enormous bronze sculpture of the sun god Helios built by the Rhodians over 12 years in the 3rd century BC. The city was the target of Macedonian siege early in the 4th century BC, and according to legend, Rhodians sold the tools and equipment left behind by the Macedonians to pay for Colossus. Designed by the sculptor Chares, the statue was at 100 feet the tallest in the ancient world. It was completed around 280 BC and stood for 60 years until it was toppled in an earthquake. It was never rebuilt. Hundreds of years later, Arabs invaded Rhodes and sold the remains of the statue as scrap metal. Because of this, archaeologists do not know the exact location of the statue or what it looked like. Most believe that it is depicted the sun god standing naked while he lifted a torch with one hand and held a spear in the other. It was once believed that the statue stood with one leg on each side of the harbor, but most scholars now agree that the statue's legs were most likely built close together to support its immense weight. And down here is the Lighthouse of Alexandria. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was located on a small island called Pharos near the city of Alexandria, designed by the Greek architect Zoroastros and completed around 270 BC during the reign of Ptolemy II. The lighthouse helped guide the Nile River ships in and out of the city's busy harbor. Archaeologists have found ancient coins on which the lighthouse was depicted, and from them deduced that the structure had 3 tiers, a square level at the bottom, an octagonal level in the middle, and a cylindrical top. Above stood a 16-foot statue, most likely of Ptolemy II or Alexander the Great, for whom the city was named, and although estimates of the lighthouse's height have ranged from 200 to 600 feet, most modern scholars believed it was 380 feet tall. The lighthouse was gradually destroyed during a series of earthquakes from 956 to 1323. Some of its remains have since been discovered at the bottom of the Nile. So as you guys can see, these 7 ancient wonders show us and tell us really the story of all of us. Through science, technology, development, and culture, mankind builds. And as mankind builds, we forever embed in our whole society signs that we existed and signs that we survived and thrived and made great, wonderful things. So remember, for this part of the lesson, pick any wonder of the world and type about it and include a picture for your brochure. More information is on the lesson doc if you need clarity. Thank you very much for tuning in.